Mariana G. Figueiro, Ph.D., is the director of the Lighting Research Center and a professor of architecture at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. She has also served as the Light and Health Program Director at the LRC since 1999. Dr. Figueiro is well known for her research on the effects of light on human health, circadian photobiology, and lighting for older adults, particularly Alzheimer's patients. Her research is regularly featured in the national media. We're talking New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Scientific American. She's given a TEDMED talk that you can go, search up on YouTube and look at and watch. Dr. Figueiro is an expert, and we really appreciated her coming on the show. At this point, we'd also like to remind you that this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Sign Hero LED T12 and T8HO tube replacements. Come on, Sign Hero. What do? You simply cut all the wires going to one side of the sockets on one side of the sign, cut all the wires going to the other sockets on the other side. You tie one to the neutral, one to the live, and pop in that 360-degree rotatable socket, Sign Hero tube, and you're done. Sign Hero just won Best New Product at Nailed Innovation last week. Come on, folks. Get your Sign Hero going. Easy installation, built to last, 50,000 hours. Keystone's got your back. Come on, folks. And we're just talking about Nailed. Nailed Innovation was last week. We're going to give you a full-blown Greg and Michael breakdown of what happened. But we think you should join Nailed. And at a minimum, if you want to sell light bulbs, you should take LS1. I'm not kidding you. LS1 is the best introductory lighting course there is. Hands down. Can't compete. No one can beat it. Best training course. Members and non-members alike can sign up for LS1. So go to the Nailed website, NAILD.org. That's nailed.org for information on joining this association or taking LS1, man. Don't be afraid to learn. And without further ado, we give you Mariana G. Figueiro, Ph.D., on episode 16 of the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. Welcome to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, Dr. Figueiro.
Thank you.
Say hello to my co-host, Greg Eric.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So we'll dive in here. So Dr. Figueiro, you are the director of the Lighting Research Center, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, but the Rensselaer Polytechnic University, is that correct?
Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. That's correct. Yes.
Okay, close. So what do you guys do there exactly, and what is your purpose?
Well, we're a center. We're about 35 people doing work, basically lighting research and education. So our mission is to advance the effective use of light. So we have a bunch of projects in different areas, area of solid state lighting, lighting health, human factors. We have an area in plant pathology, looking at how light affects pathogens in plants, transportation, outdoor. So anything related to lighting, energy efficiency, anything related to lighting, we're probably working with.
And is it an institute then, or an actual university where you can get a degree?
Yeah, no, it's a research center within Rensselaer. So we're part of the university. We do research. We have about 50, 60 projects at one time, mostly research and education, but we also have a graduate program. So we offer a master's degree in lighting and a PhD in lighting. So it's sort of like if you really want to dive into lighting, that's the place to go. So you can learn from technology to design to science and the biology and the physics of light. So it's a very interesting program because it's very interdisciplinary. So we have about 10 to 12 students. They're all graduate students of different backgrounds. So anybody that has from architectural background to physics to biology, anybody that is interested in learning more about lighting, that's what we do.
How many have graduated?
Sorry, go ahead, Greg. Yeah.
We had over 150 graduates. A lot of our graduates they go into design firms, like lighting design firms. Some of them go into architecture firms. Some of them go work for Department of Energy or US EPA. Some of them go work for universities. Some of them go work for industries like Philips, GE, Osram, lighting companies. So it's a variety of outlets that we have for the students.
Okay.
Are you building a lighting engineering department, Dr. Figueiro?
What do you mean by building a lighting engineering department?
Well, there's no lighting engineers, right? So I've always complained that, electrical engineers are lighting engineers.
Yeah.
And I always thought, nah, I don't think so.
Eh.
Are you building a lighting engineering department, Dr. Figueiro?
Well, this is our dream here. So we are not a department in lighting, but we always say that that's where we want to be. We want lighting to be a field. So we always joke
lighting
that
is a field. Lighting is a field.
I know,
actually.
but we want it to be a recognized field in the sense that you have a department, you can get a degree in it. We always joke that if you ask your high school council, what should I do when I grow up? They never tell you should do lighting. And we want that to happen. So that's really our covert agenda, is to get lighting to that point where people actually think about it. I travel a lot and I get on airplanes and people ask me, what do you do? Like lighting. I work with lighting research, and they look at me, lighting? You mean light bulbs? And they have no idea what lighting can do for you. And when I start talking about all the different projects and all the different things that we do, like, wow, that's pretty impressive. But I don't think people have an idea of how powerful lighting can be. And I'm actually surprised for you to say that lighting is a field, because not everybody thinks of lighting that way, which is kind of neat to see that at least one person on Earth does. Well, 35 people do. They're the ones here, but 35, and one person outside.
Well, I'll tell you one more time. Welcome to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, Dr. Figueiro. Okay. So, but here's the thing. So I completely agree. I think there's been a deficit, and the IES has filled that, but not from academia. So the IES is really an industry body in a way, and academia has never filled this void. What's interesting, and I think maybe you'll like this. I'm a big reader of The Economist magazine. I don't know if you know that magazine.
Yeah.
So they declared that the greatest invention of all time was the toilet. Okay. So, okay, we can argue about that. I actually think the greatest innovation and the greatest productivity tool invented of all time has to be artificial light. I don't think anything else can compare with artificial light. And ever since Thomas Edison invented artificial light, or whoever did, because Thomas Edison ended up being kind of a funny guy. I'm a Canadian, so all the Americans out there are going to get mad at me about, sticking it to Thomas Edison. But I think the artificial light is one of the greatest innovations and greatest productivity tools we've ever created, and then we forgot about it for 100 years. It seems like
we take it for granted.
Yes, that's a better way to put it.
I think we absolutely take it for granted, because it's very interesting. You get into a building, it's cold or it's warm, and you will complain, and you don't like to have to worry about the temperature. But nobody really even considers that the lighting can make a big difference in how people feel in the space, how people see in the space, how people react in the space. Nobody even think about it. You just assume that you're going to get into a building and there will be lighting for you to turn on and off. So I really think that I agree with you. It is one of the greatest invention. And by the way, we're nerds and we don't say artificial lighting. We say electric lighting, because photons are not artificial. Ooh. So that's one of the things we teach our students here. So, okay. But it is. I think it is. And when people come to the LRC and they tour the LRC and they look at all the projects we're working with, they're like, wow, I couldn't even thought of lighting as having so many opportunities and touching so many things. And I think that it is unfortunate that we take it for granted, because we shouldn't. We really shouldn't.
Well, let me put it to this way, Dr. Figueiro. If artificial lighting, or in your case, lighting, is at the heart of interior design, and on top of that, there's health effects to lighting, and there's circadian rhythm things going on, and it's what creates the largest productivity gain ever created by human engineering or human inventiveness. Why is it ignored in your mind?
I think a lot of it is it's lack of knowledge. I think that people are starting to understand these non-visual effects of light. I mean, the visual effects are pretty obvious, right? You can see when there's light, you can't see when there isn't light. As you get older, you need more light. I just did a webinar this morning about lighting for older adults, and what are the changes that occur as we age. And one of the changes everybody knows that occurs when you're in early 40s, you start needing the reading glasses because you can't see anything. And you put on more light on your task and you can see better. So I think that people can grasp the visibility a little bit, but the biological effects, people don't really grasp it. It's not like when you're hungry and you can feel you're hungry. You don't really know when you're out of sync with a solar day.
Do you
or
grasp
with your
it?
watch.
Do you grasp it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, when I'm hungry or when I have I grasp
No,
it,
light.
the light, because I know it. I understand. I know when I travel. I know when I need the light. I know when I don't need the light, just because I understand. But, as people traveling from New York to Europe, the first thing they do is, pull up the shades when they're arriving in Europe. It's the wrong time to get the shades because it's going to make it harder for you to adjust to Vienna time or to Europe time. But people don't know that because they have no conscious access to their biological clock. So I think it's when you don't know about it, you don't worry as much. So it's, in a way, it's ignorance, but not in a bad sense, in the sense that they're not aware of it. So part of what we're working with is trying to develop a sensor that has an app that talks to your phone that can give you an idea of where you are in terms of your biological clock. And that can help tell you what's the best time for you to get light and what's the best time for you to avoid light. So hopefully these tools will help you be a little bit more in sync or in tune with. I mean, it's the same thing as calorie count, for example. I mean, I don't know if I eat a plate of obviously if I eat a slice of cheesecake, I know I'm eating a lot of calories, but how much? Until I look on the menu and I see, 2,000 calories on a slice of cheesecake, I better eat half. So, when you probably control yourself and you eat less because you know how much calorie you have. And that's not true with lighting. And I think if we can start changing that, we're probably going to see people more tuned to the lighted environment.
Now, you're saying to get light and kind of relating it to calories, is all lighting the same?
No, not all lighting is the same. So you have different types of light. You have different amounts of light that you have in the environment. You obviously have daylight, which is the ideal light source for everything, for you to be able to see, for you to be able to maintain regular circadian rhythms. But the minute we move into the built environment, we pretty much lost all the daylight that we could get. I mean, the amount of light you get inside the built environment is a log unit less than what you get outdoors. And a lot of people are saying, oh, we have those dynamic lighting systems that mimic the daylight. No, they don't, because they will not get to the amount of light that you get outdoors. So they can have some dynamic systems, they can move to change color so you feel like that change, but it's not daylight. So no, not all the lights are the same. And the quality or the type of light that we can manipulate is the amount, is the spectral power distribution, which really gives you the color, whether it looks more bluish white or more yellowish white. You can obviously change the temporal part so you can give and remove light at different times. And all these things are important for you to be able to deliver healthy lighting or good lighting for biological rhythms.
Let me ask you a question. So you're talking to two guys that sell light bulbs to people every day. Okay, so Greg is a part owner of Premier Lighting. I'm a part owner of Atlas Lighting, and we sell lighting systems to people every day. Okay, And everybody that aside from the podcast that's going to come before yours, okay, so I'll give a little buffer, but everybody that I've talked to about the effects of light has been a charlatan, shall I say, has been somebody that's selling something that they want to charge more for, but it doesn't really do anything. What do we know? What do you know that we should know? I don't know if that's a good question, but
No, I understand what you're saying, and it's a little bit of a shame that I think lighting systems that are now available in the market are being sold in the premise of healthy systems and so on. I think that, to be quite honest, any lighting can be healthy if done right. So you don't have to have a specific system for it to be healthy. You have to understand the principles, okay? And I think that you asked me, what do we need to know, or what do we know that lighting does? One of the areas that we've been working with for quite some time now, and I'm very comfortable with saying light makes a difference, is with older people with Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease patients have a big problem, which is they are awake for 2 hours, asleep for 3 hours, awake again for another 4 hours. They don't have a consolidated sleep at night. On top of it, they don't go out a lot because, they tend to be locked in a facility, especially as they get to older stages.
when you say they don't go out, you mean they don't go outside?
Outside or outside of a couple of rooms in a facility. Even within facilities, what people do is they try to keep them in the same room so that they don't lose track of them, because they tend to wander and get lost. Basically, even within facilities, within indoor facility, they can get lost. So they have very limited places that they move around. I don't know if you ever visited some of these facilities, but they are very dim and they're constant light. So throughout 24 hours, you have the same light level that it's, throughout the facility. You tend to have one type of lighting system that maybe they shut it off at night, but there's still some spill light that comes from the corridor. So basically, they don't really have a robust light dark pattern. So what we're doing is we're changing the lighting that these Alzheimer's patients are being exposed to during the day. Okay, and we are increasing the amount of light that stimulates the circadian system. And to your question about, are all the lights the same? No, the light that stimulates the circadian system, it's different. We have a short wavelength sensitivity, so we're more sensitive to blue light. We're basically a blue sky detector for the circadian system, okay? So we're changing the lighting so that we are giving them higher amounts of light, as well as light sources that have more short wavelengths or more bluish white light from the time they wake up until 6 p.m. And then we remove the light at 6 p.m. We're seeing a significant improve in their sleep patterns, and we measure sleep through actigraphy, which is just basically a watch that they wear that measures their rest activity rhythms. We're seeing significant reduction in sleep disturbances by self-report, or not self-reports, but reports from caregivers. We're seeing significant reduction in depression, and we're seeing significant reduction in agitation.
And this is causational. You saying that the lighting changes cause this?
It is changing their behavior. It's changing their sleep.
And this is peer reviewed? Has somebody duplicated this somewhere else?
Oh yeah, we have 3 papers we published already. We're currently collecting data in additional subjects. And we're not the only ones. That's the work that started 1997 in the Netherlands. Joos van Sommering did similar protocol using the same thing, higher amounts of light during the day, saw exactly the same results. Sonia Uncoli, Israel, and San Diego has done
with senior
work
citizens, or with Alzheimer's patients.
Alzheimer's patients.
So why doesn't this apply? Why can't you extrapolate that to the general population?
You could. There's one interesting thing that we are finding in our research, because we're also working with the general population. We're actually working with the General Service Administration. We're collecting data in office workers and federal workers in GSA buildings. And we're seeing similar results, but not as strong as we see with Alzheimer's patients. Why? Because Alzheimer's patients are basically, quote unquote, locked in a facility where you can control their 24-hour light exposure. Office workers, people that have their normal lives, they get in and out of spaces. They have social activities that disrupt their sleep, irrespective of their, circadian rhythms and the light exposure. So there are other things that may influence regular people more than, say, Alzheimer's patients, because they are in a very controlled environment that we can control that light exposure. Same thing with, you could argue that you could do that. We're working with cancer patients at Mount Sinai in New York. These are patients that are undergoing bone marrow transplant. They have to stay in the hospital for a couple of weeks because they go through the bone marrow. They have, their immune system's completely compromised. So what we need, they have to stay in the same room. So we're adding lights in that room, and we're still collecting data, but the initial data that we're seeing is a significant improvement in depression rates. They're improving sleep. They're reducing fatigue. So when you give that light so that you can control the 24-hour light exposure, you can see the benefits. When you cannot control the 24-hour light exposure, those benefits are less, because you may give perfect lighting during the day, but you don't know what they're doing in the evening before they go to bed, or you don't know what they're doing, before they go to work or go to school. That becomes harder because you can mess up whatever benefit you're getting with the lighting during the day. Okay.
No.
So one of the things that I've been sort of hammering with people is, and I know a lot of what the lighting industry wants is to see that in offices spaces, because this is the biggest market. And what I'm telling people is, let's start with what we call the fringe populations, which is not very fringe anymore because everybody's getting older. But the older population, the Alzheimer's patients, the people that stay in hospital rooms for long periods of time, prisoners, those are people that you can control the light, and you're certainly going to see the effect a lot more.
Now, if you took those examples and you had a 24-hour period trying to relate it to lighting, I'm going to say what I think might work, and you tell me if that's the right idea. So let's say from 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., you put in a 5,000 Kelvin light temperature and more light than you would at night. So bright 5,000 Kelvin during the day. Then at 6 p.m. you reduce it down to 3,000 Kelvin or 2,700 Kelvin and less light. And then at 10 o'clock you turn it off. Is that kind of relating it to lighting what makes sense, or is it not that simple?
Well, it sort of is, except that, for example, correlated color temperature is not the right metric. You can get the same effect with 3000 K and you just modulate amount. Okay. So sure, if you do a 5000 K, you are going to have more short wavelength. So you can probably reduce a little bit the amount of light that you need compared to a 3000 K.
Listen, Dr. Figueiro, the sun's not white. It's never white. So I don't understand this obsession with 5,000 Kelvin. You look at the sun, it's always 3,000 Kelvin. When is it white? Am I wrong here? Like, am I being unsophisticated here? Come on. It's always yellow. I never look at a white sun.
Yeah, daylight is around 6,500 K. So daylight it's a cool light source. But I agree that we don't need to have 5,000 or 6,500 unless you have energy concerns. If you have energy concerns, you may need to increase a little bit the amount of short wavelength. But the truth is, if you have energy concerns, the best thing you can do is have an array of 470 nanometer LEDs around your computer screen that it's giving you 30 lux at the eye, and you're done. You're getting more light than any other white light source if you want to be energy efficient.
So let me ask you this. Are sunglasses bad or good?
If you are outdoors, you have so much light that even if you are wearing sunglasses and you have 10% transmittance, you're still getting a lot of light.
No, but what I'm saying is the people, sunglasses companies, so my interest is this, they claim to help you. I'm wondering if, maybe it's bad to wear sunglasses. Maybe it's if you're not getting outside enough, maybe you should just keep your sunglasses off.
Yeah, I mean, your sunglasses, first of all, you should wear sunglasses when you have a lot of sunlight and so on, because you have issues with cataract and so filtering out the UV is something that it's important for protecting your eye. But if you are commuting in the morning, for example, you probably, unless you have the sun hitting your eyes, you just have diffuse daylight, you can probably go out without sunglasses because it's not going to be that bright. And if you put on some sunglasses, you are going to cut some of that morning light that you need. If you're in the middle of the day and it's a bright sunny day, you should put on the sunglasses because it's so much light that you do want to cut it down. And even cutting down, you're still getting enough light for the circadian system. So I guess to your point is, if you only go outside for a short amount of time over the course of the day, sure, get as much as daylight as you can. Okay.
But that's most people.
Correct. I agree with you. What I do, people ask me, what do you do? What I do, I don't wear sunglasses in the morning. Unfortunately, I come in really early. So this time of the year, I come in, it's dark. But when I come in that it's not dark, I don't have sunglasses on. It's a short commute. I have a 10-minute commute. I don't care. A little bit I can get. It's better than nothing. And I do that. Middle of the day, I'm always wearing sunglasses because it's just way too bright. And, it's uncomfortable. So I'm wearing sunglasses in the middle of the day. But I agree. If you're going to be outside early in the morning on your commute, you probably don't need sunglasses.
Well, let me ask you this. I was waiting for Greg to jump in there. Come on, Greg. You're supposed to be backing me up here. So
go for it.
No, but here, I don't feel like, so I sell light bulbs every day to people, lighting systems. And we're chatting here about lighting and the health effects of lighting and circadian rhythm, and how can I help people if they want help? If somebody says to me, hey, Colligan, you've been in the lighting business for 20 years. We're trying to build a high productivity, excellent lighting system for our employees here. Give us the best lighting system. What would Dr. Figueiro say about that? What should I do?
Well, first thing you want to do is you want to stop thinking about horizontal illuminance, because you need to get light at the eye.
Vertical foot candles. Yeah, for sure.
That's right. So that's the first thing. Okay. The second thing is you're probably going to have to increase the amount of light you are providing people in the office space, at least for a couple of hours in the morning. So if you have energy constraints, which is what I hear all the time, and that's one of the things that I think we have to rethink about our energy codes. It's not all about saving energy. It's about the people that are in the environment. You may be saving a lot of energy, but if you're doing something that is not good for the people inside the built environment, there's no reason to do it. But I'm also not saying let's waste energy, okay, or let's spend as much energy as we can. We have to have a balance. So what you can do is you can give that higher circadian stimulation in the morning for about a couple of hours. How do you do that? I mean, I guess, Scott started talking about you can increase your short wavelength in your light. You definitely need to increase the amount of light that you get here at eye level. Okay. And you can do that only for a couple of hours in the morning.
Well, hang on one second, because I want to get back to, I know that you're a professor and you deal conceptually, but we're in the real world with actual clients putting lighting systems in. I totally agree with you. Every single code I've ever encountered, every building code, every municipal code, everything is obsessed with horizontal foot candles or horizontal lux. And I tell people all the time, the most important thing is vertical foot candles. You don't walk around like this. You don't walk around looking at the ground. You walk around like this. looking at the
That's
walls.
exactly right.
And
Yep.
if the codes are like, oh, you need 4.6 foot candles or 50 lux on the ground of a parking garage. What if the walls are dark?
That's
It feels
exactly
like a cave.
That's exactly right. That's and you don't get as much vertical light as you need. So I absolutely agree. And I'm telling you, the field studies we have done, it's a challenge, okay? Because you're talking about Alzheimer's disease patients. How do you get the light at the eye of Alzheimer's patients? And one of the ways we did it, we built a light table. So we got sharp TVs. There were 70-inch TVs that we made that a light table because Alzheimer's patients are sitting around tables all day. That's what they do. They put them in a common area. They have everybody sitting around tables, and they look down. And they said, well, why don't we give them a light table?
That's so
you
interesting.
talk about energy efficiency.
That's so interesting.
Right? It's the most effective way to deliver the light to Alzheimer's patients. So you have to think about, what do we do in office all day? We look at a computer screen. Why don't you have something around your computer screen that you can deliver that light, and leave my lighting system up in the ceiling alone? So I think we as lighting people have to stop thinking about just horizontal foot candles, have to start thinking about vertical. And we have to probably stop thinking about just light as something coming from the ceiling alone. You have to now start thinking about, how do I deliver that light close to the eye of the user?
I want to bring up something from a blast from the past, Greg, and I'm Canadian, so there's a lot of French influence into our, like we say, luminaires and stuff like that. I know that you're Brazilian, Dr. Figueiro. When I say parabolic louve, you know what I'm talking about, Greg?
Louver.
Yeah.
Parabolic fixture,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
cell fixture.
So there was, in the late 90s, when I got into the lighting game, parabolic louves were hugely popular. And then there was a study, I can't remember where I read it, but what they did was they took all the light coming out of a trough or in an office or whatever and pushed it straight down.
Mm-hmm.
So you put this parabolic louver, and you could have like 1/2-inch paracube, or you could have
those were the
3/4 inch.
little ones. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or you could, and then they got
remember
bigger.
that.
They got wide space paracube lenses and all that sort of stuff. But what they did was they grabbed all the light and pushed it straight down.
Yep.
And then you would see these offices where there was no vertical foot candles at all, no vertical lux at all on the walls. And then what happened was, I remember reading an article from this is 15 years ago, of a researcher saying that this is causing seasonal affective disorder, because people look up from their computer screens or sitting at their desk all day and they see all these dark walls. And I think I think vertical foot candles are so important. And this is just anecdotal from me lighting factories and me lighting parking garages in my business every day. Why are all the codes so obsessed with horizontal foot candles, Dr. Figueiro?
I have no idea. And I am telling you, we joke here that the IES has 60, 70 committees, and all the committees, what they do, they specify horizontal foot candles.
Yes,
Why?
this is why I'm not an LC, Greg. This is why I never took the test.
Why? You know what I mean? Why?
Who cares about horizontal foot candles? Nobody walks around like this.
No, and you don't even do a lot of tasks that you look down anymore. You are doing vertical tasks because you're looking at your computer. So I think that we have to start there. Okay, we have to, and what that will do is you're going to see a lot more light being distributed, like coming, sort of reflecting off of surfaces in the space, rather than having that directional light coming down. That really is what you want. Everywhere you look, you want to be able to have that light reaching the back of your eye.
I think you spend most of your. I think you spend most of your life looking on the vertical. Looking across, looking through something. Looking across your office, looking at your computer screen, and even if you're not focusing your eyes at a particular thing, you're seeing other things around you. And if it's dark, I think it's depressing. I think the human.
I mean, it's the cave effect, right?
Yes, I think humans get depressed when it's dark a lot.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you do because one of the things that I also want to point out, which a lot of people forget about it. There's a lot of talk about light's effect on circadian rhythms, and a lot of the effect on circadian rhythms is maintaining you synchronized or entrained with the local time on Earth. You need morning light for that, and yes, you need more short wavelength light and blue light. Okay, we got that. But you also have the acute alerting effect of light. I see you drinking your cup of coffee or tea or whatever you're drinking. That's what light does to
It's
you.
vodka. No, I'm joking.
It's vodka. Well, I can't say it is vodka, but it does. Light has an acute alerting effect. So any time of day and night you give people light, you actually have this cup of coffee effect. Now, what's most interesting is a lot of the work we're doing here, it doesn't have to be blue. We're seeing that effect with saturated red light. Red color light is changing brain activities. It's increasing your subjective alertness. So you're feeling less sleepy. You're reacting faster. So we're doing reaction times, and we're seeing reaction times being faster. So there are these two pathways that if you just focused on circadian, you give them the light in the morning and you're done, but then you have the post-lunch dip. If you keep people in dim light and in darkness during the post-lunch dip, they're going to be sleepy. You need light to be able to give that acute alerting effect.
No, I think those people need to have stop having 2 beers with lunch, and it would help
Well,
them not to be
that would
sleepy.
help. That would definitely help.
I think the whole color temperature thing is a red herring. I think that.
Yeah, it is.
I think the warmer the better. And this is just me, light bulb salesman from Toronto. I think, 5,000, 6,500K, I think all this kind of color of light stuff. I mean, Greg, I don't know if you're going to back me up with this or disagree with me. I think vertical foot candles, 3,500 Kelvin, 3,000 Kelvin. And I think take your sunglasses off because you're in your office all day. I think, get outside whenever you can. I think there's some simple things here that that can help people. And I mean, I know you're talking about Alzheimer's patients, but, whenever I read a medical study about a compromised group and they say this has a high impact on a compromised group, I think that generally can be applied to the group as a whole, the rest of the group, because it's just that their immune systems are stronger or they're healthier or whatever it is. And so if you're 70, it's hard for you to work the night shift. But if you're 35, you can handle the night shift, but you're going to pay the price. You're going to pay the price in your mood. You're going to pay the price with feeling tired at weird times. You're going to feel the price with craving sugar. I don't know. There's some price you have to pay for working the night shift. Is that proving in your research at all, Dr. Figueiro?
Yeah, there's a lot of epidemiological research that show that if they look mostly at nurses and if they work shift work, but more rotating shifts. So you have two or three nights on, 2 nights off, and so on. And you do that for 20, 30 years. They're at high risk for breast cancer. They're high risk for diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease. So clearly, there's a toll.
Does it affect their ovulation? And I mean, I don't mean to get crazy.
They have more difficulty getting pregnant. They have more miscarriages. All of this it's been shown. I mean, obviously.
But is that correlated or causational?
It's correlated. All of these are epidemiological studies that they correlate. Obviously, they try to say.
What does epidemiological mean? What do you mean by that?
It's just collecting data on large cohorts. So they look at, 5,000 nurses, and of those, how many. So they basically look at, regression analysis, and is there a correlation between these 5,000 nurses and X amount of them got cancer or breast cancer and so on. So it's really looking at
the night shift people were more likely to get this.
Night shift nurses, most of the work that's been done is looking at night shift nurses. But rotating night shift nurses, so those that go on and off shifts.
Can we help them with lighting?
Rotating shift nurses is one of the hardest populations to help. And the reason is you can't help them re-entrain because it's too short period. 2 or 3 days is very hard to become a night owl or a rat, basically. So basically night shift nurses that are doing rotating shifts are daytime people struggling to stay awake at night. Okay. All we can do is give them the cup of coffee. And we actually are doing a field study. It's funded by NIOSH, and we're looking at giving the red light to these nurses, because the red light will not affect their melatonin levels, will not affect their circadian system, but it will give them the cup of coffee. And right now, that's the best solution I see for shift workers, because I would be very reluctant to give them blue light or higher amounts of light that would suppress their melatonin and disrupt their circadian system even further. So I think that's a population that we still don't know what to do with, because we know we need shift workers. We need to keep hospitals open at night. We need people working. They tend to be young people that are on the shift, so they're going to do that for long periods of time. And it's just the fact that they are awake and they're fighting their own biological clock. That alone is a problem.
You know, it's interesting, and Greg always gets mad at me when I go off the lighting topic. He's going to give me a dirty look over the virtual studio here.
We can't really see him here.
Oh, I can see him fine. Oh, come on, Scott. I'm going to get mad at Scott in a second, who's the producer. Greg's my co-host, Scott's the producer. But so you have like 911 call operators is another one. Okay, so
Yep.
in Toronto, my sister was a 911 call operator for a while, and they would do like these 12-hour shifts, insane 12-hour shifts. And they would have 4 days on and 6 days off and 4 days on. And I thought, this is miserable. I mean, you may get 5 days off in a row, but what ends up happening is your sleep patterns are totally screwy.
Yeah.
My brother's a pilot, and I think he has the same problem. He's like flying back and forth, and you know, then he's sleeping and he's not sleeping. Are these, and we're way off the lighting topic, Greg, we got to bring it back to lighting, but I'm going to ask you one more question. Are these jobs undercompensated? Like if you're working those hours, do you need to be paid more?
Yeah, you know, actually Denmark is changing. They consider now these kinds of jobs high-risk jobs, and they are actually overpaying or paying more people that are in these kinds of jobs. So I wouldn't be surprised if eventually that would get here, because it's starting to spread, because there are more and more of those epidemiological data is looking at these different populations, showing that they are at higher risk because they're working these odd shifts and they're disrupting themselves. So I think in the near future, that's not unreasonable to think of, and I think it will end up happening at some point. So
I guess bringing it back to lighting, like Mike asked, the thing I'm trying to wrap my head around is the Kelvin temperatures. So blue light, 5,000K has more blue than 3,000K. Am I wrong?
Yes, that's true. You know that, Greg.
Well,
yes,
I'm asking because it sounds wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, you have more short wavelength content than in a 5,000K than you have in a 3,000K. That's correct.
Okay, and if blue light is good for increased alertness and cognitive function and things that you mentioned, but then earlier you said you can use 3,500K all day long and just make it brighter during the day. Why wouldn't you up the Kelvin temp?
Because you know, one of the things that people tend to confuse a little bit is wavelength and amount. They're sort of interchangeable. So what happens is, we have a peak sensitivity for the circadian system at 460 nanometers, which is blue, right? But this is not, this is a sort of a a little bit, think of a function that it's a little bit, you know, a sine function, say, which is with a peak at 460. Okay, I wish I had my whiteboard here that I could draw this. So what happens is you still have sensitivity at 500 nanometers, 520 nanometers, okay? But you have less sensitivity there. So what happens is if I put light at 520 nanometers, all I need to do is I need to increase the amount of energy I'm putting in that part of the spectrum to get the sensitivity or to get the response I want, right? So if I put the energy right where I'm have a maximum sensitivity, I need less light. But I still have sensitivity at 520, and a 3000K puts light out a lot of energy in 520 nanometers. But so if I increase the amount of the energy at 520 nanometers, I can have an effect on the circadian system the same way I would have with less light at 460. Okay. Now, if I put energy at 640, then I don't have a lot of response by the circadian system, even though I can have an alerting effect. Does that make sense? I mean, you think about this, the SPD of an LED, it's that blob, right? So it has a peak at short wavelength, but then you have the whole long wavelength that you still emit energy there. That's what makes that light source warm, is that you're emitting light at 520, 530, right? So you just increase the amount of light there and you're still going to have the same effect. But you need more light to be able to activate. So your biological clock is not blind to longer wavelengths. It's just less sensitive to it.
Okay,
Yes?
so
I see a blank look.
no, I know, I get what you're saying, but so there's a difference between, here's what, I'll just give you a little quickie on Greg and I. So we sell light bulbs every day to people, okay?
Okay.
And we listen to a lot of people talk about lighting, but they've never sold light bulbs to anybody. And I could probably put that, to you, that's not an insult, but to a lot of people in this business, that are talking about lighting, it kind of qualifies them. Now, a researcher is different, like Dr. Arnold Wilkins, for example. He's not selling light bulbs to people every day. But a lot of people are out there talking about the health effects of lighting and trying to sell something, right? And that's not what you're doing. So, but we are, like, I'm standing in front of the end user client and they're asking me this question, like, can I increase productivity? Can I help my people feel better? I'm an old age home. I want to help people. I don't have the answers to these questions, and I'm an honest guy. Like, I'm never going to lie to somebody. But there's people out there that will tell them something. Greg, do you have anybody in Minneapolis right now, Greg? That's right. I have a guy in Toronto who's running around talking about the health effects of lighting, and he doesn't know anything. What are some key things you're saying? Okay, more light, more vertical foot candles. 100% agree. More light, more vertical foot candles. What else, Dr. Figueiro?
Well, I have to say that every time I give a talk, people ask me, can I improve productivity? And my answer is, I don't have an answer on productivity. I would never say that better lighting, or lighting that impacts the circadian system or provides an alerting stimulus, will improve productivity, because we don't really have enough data for that. I can tell you better lighting during the day will help you sleep better at night. That I'm comfortable saying, because we've shown it with Alzheimer's patients, we've shown it with office workers, we've shown it with submariners, we've shown it with kids. That I'm pretty comfortable saying. Now, obviously, you think about it and you say, if I have a better night of sleep, I'm probably going to do better at work the following day. So you could argue that A equals B, B equals C, then A equals C. But I don't have A equals B. I don't have data on that. So I can't tell you that. Okay, so if anybody's going out and saying that light can improve productivity, I don't believe that personally. Okay, that's my opinion from what I know. Okay.
Well, I think a better way to put that would be the light that you have in your office that you're putting on your people in your office. We can't guarantee that's going to improve productivity, but we know that if people sleep better, they're going to be better at their jobs.
Correct.
So it's a holistic argument. It's a lifestyle argument.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Gregor.
like diet. It's like diet, right? A lot of people go on diet. Some people lose weight. Some people don't lose weight. Some people maintain the weight they lose. Some people don't. So, but it's a lifestyle, and you have to just choose to do a lifestyle. I always make the comparison of lighting and ergonomic chairs. I mean, really, how much research is there to show the ergonomic chairs improves productivity, makes you feel better?
You've got a pretty comfortable chair there. It looks like big headrest.
Actually, it's a pretty cheap. It's a pretty cheap chair. This is not an ergonomic chair. But my point is that people are happy to spend the money on ergonomic chair. because they believe it's better
Mm.
for them, right? And then with lighting, it's all this thing where you got to show me the data, you got to prove me that it's this, you got to prove. I mean, come on. Everybody knows if you have better lighting in the space, if anything, your space looks better, you can probably see better. We're starting to collect data showing that you can sleep better if you have better light during the day. Why not? It's like nursing homes. Why are we doing the crappy lighting in nursing homes
I
that
think
we're
the
doing right
reality
now?
is the people that don't know, they don't know what better lighting is. That's what we're
I completely
asking.
agree with you. And I think
Right.
better lighting is lighting that allows you to see what you need to see in the space. It's lighting that promotes your circadian entrainment, that will activate your circadian system during the daytime. It's lighting that will maintain your alertness. And then you ask me, how do you achieve that? Perfectly. Vertical illuminance, light at the eye. You can use spectrum, so you can, yes, you can tune to a cooler light source. A lot of people don't like the 5000K, so do it with a 3000. You just have to increase the light levels slightly more. Reduce the amount of light you're getting in the evening hours. Dim down your computer screens or turn them off before you go to bed, because that's probably not helping you either. Okay. Go outdoors for a half an hour walk during daybreak every day. Go outside during lunch. Those are little things that you can do to just get better lighting. Okay. So it's not really that hard. I think we're just cheap in how we do lighting, and it's a
You
shame.
need to pay Greg and Michael more money
Well,
to
it's
build
just
your
that
lighting systems for you.
that's where the budget is cut, right?
Yeah,
Everybody's
for sure.
paying for expensive
For sure.
furniture, for ergonomic chairs,
For
but then
sure.
when it comes to the lighting, oh, I need
Or they're no,
proof that
they're
this
paying
is
a lot of money
better.
for light fixtures that aren't delivering vertical
They
foot
aren't
candles.
delivering what they're. That's right. That's right.
You know,
So how do you
so
do that? You have direct indirect fixtures are probably giving you a better horizontal to vertical ratio, right? You have to have light color surfaces, lower partitions in offices, okay? Because I know everybody likes their privacy, but you minimize the amount of light you're getting by having higher partitions.
I think you
So there
minimize your
are,
vertical foot candles by partitions because the light above you is becoming horizontal foot candles and is
correct.
sending vertical foot candles to the next office. And if that light was coming towards you, it would be sending vertical foot candles towards you. I agree with that
And you need
100%.
but one of the ways that you also want to give that light is through interreflected light in the space, right? Because you know, you could have something around your computer screen that could be comfortable delivering that light, but you don't want to have a light above you shining directly in your eye because it could be uncomfortable and glary. So all these things you have to take into account. So the comfort of the lighting is also important. So what I always tell lighting designers is I give you guys tools, okay? So I tell you, here are the things that you want to look for. Here are the things you want to try to achieve. Now there are challenges. Sometimes making lighting good for visibility may conflict with making light good for the circadian. So layers of light is what you want, okay? You want to forget about trying to achieve everything just with ceiling lights. So you're selling fixtures, you have to start thinking about selling portables, things that people can put close to their eyes, layers of light. You want to talk to the interior designer because I think you mentioned earlier, you don't want to have dark walls because it's going to look like a cave. And then you have to increase the amount of light. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be glary. So I think LEDs nowadays, or, we're starting to see OLEDs and so on. You have so much in terms of the technology that you can be creative. So it is really one of the best times in lighting. People have the technology to do what they need to do. They just got to stop thinking about horizontal foot candles. Just quit talking about horizontal foot candles.
Did you hear that, Mark Lean? Mark Lean.
Mark
Lean.
knows. I mean,
we're just gonna send the little shout out. He was on the podcast. I think he was number 8. So we kind of we're on the front lines, Greg and I, of the lighting world. So I have a couple more questions, but I'm going to let Greg jump in here if you have anything, Greg, and then I'll ask a couple more questions for Dr. Figueiro.
Yeah, I just feel like I kind of think I got it summed up. So to have healthy
Sum it up,
lighting,
Gregor.
you want it to be adjustable, and you want to layer it.
Correct.
Is that what I can take away?
Yeah, and you want to control
pass that
time.
in.
You need to think about time, when to give and when
Mhm.
to remove that light is also important, because we tend to think about lighting as a static system, and it doesn't have to be, or it shouldn't be. You should have certain times of day you have more, other times of day you have less. So it's a full 24-hour scheme or full waking scheme, not just how much I get in my office or how much I get in my school.
Okay.
So scheduled and adjustable and layered.
Correct.
Done.
Scheduled,
Thank you.
adjustable, layer, and no horizontal foot candles only. Don't forget
right.
that.
Okay. Now, here's my questions. These are two little suspicions I've had. I've always been a big proponent of vertical foot candles, and it's been you're talking 12 years. I probably have an article in some magazine that I wrote years ago. But here's my next point. So roadway lighting, okay. So it's the middle of the night, okay. And this is just me, Gregor, I'm going on one of these wild rides here. So evolution, we are a species that evolved, okay. And at night we evolved in firelight, okay. So we're sitting around fires at night and we're seeing in firelight, okay. And this is just a side theory. Maybe all the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast listeners are going to think Culligan's crazy. He's gone off the edge again. But I think there's something to low Kelvin temperature at night that needs to be studied. I think there's something about 2000 Kelvin, that candlelight, high pressure sodium level of lighting. That's 2000, 2200 Kelvin, 2500 Kelvin. That humans are very, very comfortable when the rest is black. So if the rest of the night sky is really, really dark, it's easier for you to drive through or for you to see through low Kelvin temperature lighting. And I'm just saying this because over the last 5 years, I've watched our street lighting change from high pressure sodium to 5000 Kelvin LED. And I find that I don't know how to put it any other way, but if my gut on the whole horizontal versus vertical thing is kicking in here, and it's saying there's too much pressure from this light. That's the only word I can think about, is that it feels like 5000 Kelvin puts pressure, or it's offensive, or it's too white or something for the night. It's like there's almost, maybe, I'm trying to be romantic here or something, but when I'm driving down a highway and there's those high pressure sodium, warm Kelvin temperature lights, I feel like it's easier to drive through. And maybe I'm just an old lighting guy that doesn't know what he's talking about, but is there anything like that you can comment on, or is it just my gut instinct?
I think that one of the things about lighting that we can't really set aside is it's the psychological effect, right? It's what you're saying, it's how you feel in the space and how you feel in the environment. And I think, I work a lot with Sweden, the Swedish Energy Agency, and you don't try to put cooler light sources in Sweden because you're not going to be successful. The Swedes love their warm color light. I mean, this is what they do. They're candle lights, they're warm color lights. This is what they like. And I doubt they're ever going to change that, okay? Because there's a cultural thing around
Is that gut instinct correct? Is that the correct gut instinct?
Well, let me tell you, some of the research we have here, it's actually showing that if you have the higher, correlated color temperature, so more short wavelength, it's actually, you increase the perception of safety. So people actually feel safer.
Yes, when people look up, hang on. When people look up at white lights, yes, they will report that it's brighter, and they will report when they look up, they will report that white light is brighter than warm light. I get that.
And it is because you have, physiologically, for the same lux level at the eye, a 6500K will look brighter than a 2700K.
Yes.
Okay.
Even if the light level is the same.
And if you have that brightness perception is associated with the sense of security in a parking lot or on a street and so on. So it really depends on what are you talking about in terms of, if it's, just sitting around a campfire, people don't want to do that under a 6500K. They would rather do it under a warm color. So I think that you can go either way. It really depends on what situation and what really system that you're talking about. Are you talking about the psychological system? You're talking about the visual system?
But all these things matter, Dr. Figueiro. They all matter.
Yes. And the context matter too, right? And the culture matter. So if you go to Japan, they have cooler light sources, and that's what they have, and they're used to it, and that doesn't bother them. So I think we can't take it out of context and just say, well, this color is better than this one. Well, for what? Under what context? What's the population? So I don't think it's as simple as saying, I personally like the warm color, even though in certain circumstances, I just like the cooler color too, not for dark environments, for example. There was the Kurotoff effect, right? Which some people replicated, other people didn't, where, it says that if it's low light levels, you want warmer color. If it's high light levels, you want cooler colors. Some people have not replicated that because I think it does depend on the cultural, who you're talking to.
If it depends on cultural, hang on one second. If it depends on cultural, and we get we've had an hour here, so we're gonna have another podcast with you, Dr. Figueiro. Hopefully you'll come on again, because it's been an hour and it doesn't feel like an hour. Greg, does it feel like an hour to you?
No, it's been going.
Yeah, no, it's been a good talk. So, because everyone complains that our podcasts are too long, but they keep listening, so we're okay with that. But if you're saying it's cultural, that means that they evolve differently than us. And I'm not sure I'm prepared to go there.
Well, it's interesting.
Or than Caucasians, say, us.
It's very interesting because you have countries, and we have worked recently with U.S. embassies in Reykjavik in Iceland and in Riga in Latvia. And one of the things about these countries that they're high latitudes, in Reykjavik, literally, I was there in December. You don't have daylight until 11:30 in the morning. Now, you're talking about being weird. This is just bizarre. It's night at 10 o'clock in the morning, right? And one of the complaints that or at least the comments that we saw, was very interesting. The U.S. citizens that were posts in these embassies were the ones that were not adapting to this type of photoperiod. The Icelanders, the people from Iceland said, it doesn't bother me at all, because as long as there's snow on the ground, which obviously snow reflects light up, so it makes it a little bit brighter, we know summer's coming, so we don't really care. So I wonder if there's a genetic adaptation, that you're born and raised in places like that. So the culture, we put it as being cultural, but it may be that there's a genetic thing associated with culture. So one of the things that I do want to say, and I do want to say based on that for lighting, is that I think we have this brush of what do you need for the daytime, what do you need for the nighttime. These are averages, okay? I think there's a lot of individual differences, and I think that the next frontier of the research is really understanding those individual differences. And I think that the technology now is starting to allow us to provide you with your individual light-dark pattern. And that's where I think it's going to go. It's going to be more individualized treatments that go from building to building. So when I come into work, I have this type of lighting that it's continuing with when I go home, and it's continuing with when I do this, because now I have the technology to be able to do that. So I think the future of lighting is going to be a more individualized solution. That's where I think what we
need, and Greg and I have gone into this a little bit, is some sort of integrated software which connects to electrical devices and then connects to your own personal device and then tells you where you're at. Maybe adjust. That's
exactly what I think where it's going to go. So I think we're overthinking the general lighting and the ceiling lights, because I think they are not the ones that are really going to do the job for the circadian and the individual. I think eventually it will be those individualized solutions. So I think there's a lot of potential in lighting. There's a lot that we don't know yet, and there's things that we can still do. So I just think it's a really, really nice time to be in lighting, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I'm glad I am
We could
in
keep
it.
going.
So-
We could keep going for sure. But I thank you for coming on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, Dr. Figueiro. We really appreciate it. And where are you right now? Where are you?
I am in Troy, New York,
Troy, New York.
upstate New York.
Well,
Yeah,
we'll have to
it's
catch up
cold
with you in
out of it.
person. Yeah, we'll have to catch up with
Yeah.
you in person sometime.
Whenever you come down from Canada to go to New York City, stop by.
I will. Gregor,
good.
anything?
No, that should do it.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr.
All right.
Figueiro. Appreciate you
Thank
coming
you,
on the show.
everyone. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Keystone Technologies. Man, always balling. Get that Sign Hero going. How do you do it? Well, you simply cut all the wires going to the sockets on one end of the sign, cut all the wires going to the sockets onto the other end of the sign, tie one side to the live, the other to the neutral, and pop in your rotatable socket 360 degree Sign Hero T12 and T8HO LED tube replacements, man. And you're done. Your sign is LED. No changing sockets, no sticky tape, nothing. And you know Keystone's got your back with a 50,000 hour warranty. Come on, man. Go to KeystoneTech.com. That's KeystoneTech.com. Or you can even just Google Keystone Sign Hero if you're lazy. Like if you don't like to type URLs in, just Google Keystone Sign Hero. Pretty sure it'll come up. Come on, folks. KeystoneTech.com. Also, don't forget, Nailed Innovation just happened. So you missed this year's conference, the best conference in the lighting business if you sell light bulbs to the end user. That's right. I'm talking about Nailed Innovation, man. Just happened. I only saw, 10 new people there. What are you folks doing? You got to join Nailed. You should also take LS1. If you're cheap, you're too cheap to join Nailed, take LS1. So you can learn about lighting, man. It is the best light bulb course there is. Light bulb course. Sorry, guys. With all the lighting dorks out there. It's a light source. So it is the best course, I'm telling you. Take it. LS1. Go to nailed.org. And we'd like to thank Mariana G. Figueiro, Ph.D. Dr. Figueiro, thank you for coming on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. Nice to meet you at the convention last week as well. Your talk at the convention was 10 times better than the podcast. But hey, folks, if you're too cheap to go to the convention, all you get is the podcast. Come on, folks. Sometimes you got to pay for stuff. Like joining Nailed, you can go and meet Mariana G. Figueiro, Ph.D. at the convention. What are you thinking? Nailed.org. Search up Dr. Figueiro's TEDMED talk on YouTube. Thanks, folks. Episode 16, Get a Grip on Lighting.